the royal mummies of Dar el-Bahari. The year 1881 was signalized by one of the most remarkable finds ever recorded in the annals of Egyptology, and which, judged from a historical standpoint, is invaluable. It brought to light nothing less than the bodies of many of the great pharaohs and other royal personages, together with their coffins and funerary furniture. The history of it may be briefly related thus. Ever since 1876, M. Maspero, then the Director General of the Bulak Museum in Cairo, had strong suspicions that the Theban Arabs had come upon some royal tombs which they were gradually despoiling, and the contents of which they were dispersing and selling in different parts of the country. Earlier in that year, General Campbell, an English officer, brought an hieratic papyrus at Thebes, for which he paid 400 lire. I think that's what the L stands for. On being unrolled and examined, proved to be that of Paynet II, one of the priestly usurpers of the 21st dynasty. In 1877, de Salsi sent to Maspero photographs of a papyrus in which had belonged to Queen Net, the mother of Herhor, was the founder of the line of priest kings. This papyrus is torn in two, part of it being in the British Museum, the rest in the Louvre. I don't think you pronounce the R-E. At the same time, there constantly appeared in the market at Cairo Ushaptio figures of Pa'anet, some being fine and well made, while others being very coarse. In 1879, Rogers Bey showed it to M. Maspero, a tablet which had belonged to one of the Herhor family and which was then in his possession. This caused the French savant to feel quite convinced that his surmise concerning the royal tombs could not be far wrong. In March 1881, he started up the river, determined to leave no means untried which should lead to the capture of the Arabs and their treasures. The only clue Maspero possessed was the names of those who had sold the objects. They were Mustafa Aga, the consul for Great Britain and Belgium at Luxor, and Abd Rasul Ahmed of Gurna. So does the M for all these names stand for Muhammad? The former, in consequence of his diplomatic position, escaped, but the latter was ordered by the Mudir of Kenna to be arrested at once. After a most searching examination, nothing could be elicited from him but that he was a most honest Arab who would never dream of breaking open a tomb, far less of selling the contents. Bribes, threats, imprisonment, some say even tortures were tried, but all in vain. He and his friends still maintained that he was the most truthful of men and of unimpeachable honesty. In the face of such universal testimony to his good character, Maspero could only oppose that of absent foreigners. Ahmed was, therefore, provisionally released. But a quarrel appears to have broken out immediately upon his return home between himself and his three brothers, which resulted in Muhammad Abdurrasul traveling secretly to Kenna and divulging the whole secret to Mudir. A telegram was dispatched to the Minister of the Interior, who proceeded to convey the intelligence without further delay to the Khedive. Thereupon, Emil Brugsch, the Director General, having just left for Europe, set out for Thebes, where he was met by Muhammad Abdurrasul, who conducted him to the cleft in the mountain at Dar al-Bahari, which has since become historic. Here was the opening of the tomb shaft down which Brugsch and his companions had to be lowered to a depth of nearly 40 feet. or maybe the M stands for Mr. On reaching the bottom, they found themselves in a corridor about 225 feet in length, along which they had to grope their way, and which finally led them to a large chamber about 25 feet long, nearly rectangular in shape. This was found to be quite full of mummies, coffins, canoptic vases, Ushaptio figures, boxes, bronze objects, funerary furniture, etc. While carelessly thrown aside at the sharp turn in the corridor was the beautiful funerary canopy of the Princess Essa Keb, his marvelous piece of leather patchwork for which the skins of hundreds of gazelles must have been used. It has been most carefully restored by Brugsch and is now in the Giza Palace. Notwithstanding the intense heat, July 11th, it was resolved to remove the contents of the chamber to Cairo, and for 48 hours a gang of workmen was occupied in bringing them to the mouth of the tomb, while Brugsch and Ahmed Effendi Kamal stood superintending the work. In less than a fortnight, the whole find was sent across the river to Luxor and was thence conveyed by the Khedive's steamer to Cairo. The arranging of the mummies and the sorting of their respective cases was no easy task, as it was found that the coffins often contained a body other than that of the real owner. For instance, the mummy case of Queen Nefertari was found the body of Ramasu III, while the coffin of the nurse of Queen Nefertari Ra contained the mummy of Queen Anhati, and Pa'anet was found to have taken possession of the coffin of Jehotamus the First. Oh, I forgot how to say that name, but Jehotam Neferkaspermus? Something like that. 4 dynasties of the Egyptian Empire are represented by these mummies, the most important personage among them being King Sakten Ra of the 17th dynasty. Kings Ahmes and Yemenhotep, Prince Sahatep, Princess Satyaman, the royal scribe of Sanu of the household of Queen Nefertari, the royal wife of Set Kamas, the royal daughter Meshent Themhu, Jehotamus II, and Jehotamus III of the 18th dynasties. Oh, I forget how you say Seti the First, but Seti the First and Ramasu II of the 19th and Ramasu III of the 20th. Among the priestly representatives of the 21st dynasty are Queen Net-Met Masa Harta and Pa'ennet Athem III, High Priest of Yemen, Queen Ma'at-Ka Ra, and the Princess Issa Keb and Nesse Khansu. In 1883, it was found necessary to bury certain of the mummies, but before doing so, Maspero decided to unroll them. Since then, the whole collection has been undone. In 1885, Queen Nefertari was examined and was found to contain the body of a middle-aged woman of average height and belonging to the white and not black race of mankind. Well, rather than every nation being its own race, that's closer, or maybe, no, not really, but subspecies is what we could say now. Asiatic, Negroid, Caucasoid, It will be remembered that this queen is often represented on the monuments with a black complexion, although some of them depict her as very fair. Hence, doubtless, arose those innumerable discussions as to her nationality. During her lifetime, she was immensely beloved, and after her death, her worship was very popular at Thebes. She is there deified under one of the many forms of Hathor, the black female entity that is worshipped, of death, and the divine hidden hand of the land. Kind of like a Kali, right? Well, incarnation of Kali, really. You got to look past the depictions to what the name really is, but this may possibly account for the queen's face being so often painted black, while the opening of the mummy settles once and for all the historical questions of her nationality. Later on, the bodies of Saknan Ra, Seti I, Ramasu II, and III were unrolled and are now exhibited in the gardens, in the galleries of the Giza Palace. While with these sheets going through the press, information was received from Luxor that a large collection of mummies, supposed to be those of the high priests of Yemen, and a considerable number of papyri have been discovered at Dar al-Bahari, a secluded spot east of the great stage temple of Queen Hatshepsut. The mortuary temple, when first entered, was found to be in exactly the same state of helpless confusion as was that of the royal mummies when discovered in 1881. Sarcophagi, baskets containing the funerary wreaths, statuettes, boxes, funerary objects, and small cases crammed with papyri, all lay about as if hurriedly thrust away for purposes of concealment. Some of the sarcophagi bore the date of the 11th dynasty, and it was for a few hours fondly held that the explorers might have come upon an unbroken sequence of the high priests from that period onwards, but the majority of the 163 mummies appear to belong to the 21st dynasty, and though called high priests of Yemen, are thought to be the corpses of generals and other dignitaries who bore priestly as well as official titles. It is as yet difficult to form any estimate as to their archaeological value, for many of the sarcophagi bear totally different names on the outer and inner casings, while others contain mummies which obviously do not belong to them. From some of the sarcophagi, the name of the rightful occupant has been deliberately effaced. The whole find includes 75 papyri, has now been safely moved to the Giza Palace near Cairo. But M. Grabout, the director, thinks that owing to the size and importance of the collection, some time must elapse before any definite scientific information can be given. And so between while these sheets and can be given was put in brackets here, I guess because this was the new to the one volume edition of this. Les Mamies Royales de Dar el Bahari by G. Maspero and E. Brugsch. Or maybe they expect us to know their first name and it's not the same abbreviation M every time.